Hi everyone, it's Heidi from flutterbyheidi.co.uk. I'm Heidi Smith. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator based in the United Kingdom, and today I'm working with the lovely Perched in a Tree stamp set and coordinating aspen dies. Now they are available earlier on in this year as an offer, so you may already have had them, but it creates this beautiful, the main die creates this lovely tree panel. As you can see, I've used that as an aperture to create kind of a sunset kind of feel. Some of the skies we've had recently been absolutely beautiful, so I just have chucked together a few colours, and then when you open it up we've got this display fold, so we've got some lovely leaves there and the little robin peeking through as well afterwards, so that will make a really lovely card when it stands up on a mantelpiece or a windowsill, but without taking up too much space, because it can just fold flat and pop through in a standard envelope. So that's what I'm creating today. I've also used, you can't see too much of, but just in the background here to create a bit of texture, the lovely Timber 3D folder you can see here, and that gives a lovely wood grain effect as well, and I've just enhanced that with a little bit of blending brush and a bit of ink. Yeah, so that's what we're going to make. A really useful style of card, just stands up really nicely. The Perched in a Tree stamp set, we've got dies that cut out this robin and the branch, the leaves as well, two sizes of leaf, and you've also got a blossom die as well that goes with it, as well as this big oval that we've got here. So that's the one we're going to need. I've already cut some of the leaves out, but they're just a standard, and what they do though is they're really deeply created, so they add the embossing in when you pop those through the die cutting machine. You're going to need a sheet of A4, and I've used some soft suede, and you're going to trim that down to 14.5 by 27 centimetres. You need two pieces of cardstock for the front layer, a piece of crumb cake I've used, which is 14.5 by 10.5, and a piece of basic white as well, the same size. You'll want a piece of cardstock for the centre, which is 14 by 8.5, and a piece for, in fact that's the 14 by 8. Let's have a look. Anyway, it'll be one of those pieces. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, it is that one. I just suddenly looked at it and went, then you'll want a separate piece to go on the side, and that is 14 by 4 centimetres. So that's all your main cardstock pieces. I did add a narrow border of some crumb cake onto that. Can't really see it as well as I might have liked, but if you want to add that, that is 14.3 by 4.3 centimetres as well. So that's just going to go, just create a little narrow border for that embossed piece. So first things first, we're going to do our die cutting. So just pop that oval, and I just eyeball it into the centre of my panel. I run that through. So when you put it through, I usually run that through a couple of times. Once at an angle in this it's a slight angle in this direction, and once again in the opposite direction, rather than putting it straight through your machine, because that will obviously it might bend your dies. So once that's out, these usually just literally ping out with a quick flick. If not, use your die brush or your pokey tool. They're quite large pieces, these ones, so you should find they will come out quite nice and easily. There, any last little bits, just poke those through, and again you've got embossing that's coming through on there as well. You could always ink your die as well to add a little bit of interest. So that's my panel. I'm going to pop this through the folder. Now, just a note, I always find it useful to use this line that we've got in them to, if I show you that, you might be able to see it better on that side. This is a black line, and I just use that to help me get that lined up nice and straight. Close it up, and don't forget to pop it through hinge side first. Now it is a So this is a thicker folder. It's a 3D one, so you may find you need to adjust your sandwich. Obviously on the Stampin' Up one, you've got all those sandwiches ready for you. If you've got an old Big Shot, you'll need the blue plate or another adapter. But you can see there, hopefully, that gives you a lovely embossed effect. And if I just clear the deck slightly. The next thing I want to do is to do some inking. So I want my piece of basic white, which is, as I said, 10.5 by 14.5, and I'm going to use just some different inks. So I'm just going to grab a scrap of card, and I've got some pumpkin pie and some crushed curry. And I have got brushes for kind of each of the colour groups. So that's my sort of yellow brush, that's my oranges. And then I may come in actually and do a bit of Cajun craze as well afterwards. In fact, I'm going to move that off to the side and give myself a little bit more space. And what I will want is my crumb cake for my timber as well. So in fact, I'll do that one first. So with my crumb cake, I'm just going to grab my brush, add it into there, and then just I've probably inked that up a little bit more than my previous one, but it's covered up by the leaves, but it just allows a little bit more texture to sort of show through. So I can pop that away now, less likely to get quite so inky. Now let's do our panel. So I'm going to start with my yellow here, which, as I say, is crushed curry, and I'm just going to come in with that on the base there. And then let's add a bit of my pumpkin pie. And the sides, obviously, on this are going to be hidden by that front panel, so it's only the central bit you're going to see. So you can just blend those in. I'm kind of brought, generally speaking, kind of thirds, but I start at the edge, so any sort of deep colours or lines from having a bit of ink on there are not going to be visible on the front. You're not going to get any sort of deep marks visible. And then actually, let's try a bit of Cajun craze. I use polished pink on my other one. But let's have a go. Yeah, that's just adding in some sort of deeper tones. So let's give that a go. When it's being covered up mainly by a die cut anyway, my less than perfect blending that I've got there won't be quite so visible. So clear the decks down. Yeah, that hopefully should make that a bit better for you. So once you've got that, there we go, and you can see there that, you know, all of a sudden it changes it quite dramatically. So I'm going to use some Tombow, and the beauty on the first one I actually made it slightly smaller, and then sort of obviously realised that was a bit of a daft thing to do because it reduced my area and made it more difficult to line up. So I'm going around the outside, and then I'm just popping some dabs of adhesive up the middle there. It's not, you know, it's not detailed. It is detailed, but it's not a really fine die cut with lots of pieces that are going to catch if you don't glue them down. So once I've done that, I'm just going to remove that a little bit. You can just pop that straight onto the top and then line that up. And that can just go set to one side for a moment. So now we've got those, done. Let's pop our panel onto our crumb cake layer. And then we can do our stamping and colouring. Okay, while those are drying. So for the stamping for this centre panel, I'm just going to use the lovely robin and the branch. Oh, that's what I didn't do. Ah, fiddle. Okay. Best laid plans. Right, so what I didn't do before I stuck it down was add my texture. So all I did was actually ink up this one to give it a little bit of texture, which I wouldn't normally recommend doing straight onto it. But actually, because it's got quite a bit of quite a few areas where the dots sort of stick out a bit, so you can actually come in without damaging your inking. I'm just using stamped off crumb cake in most instances there. I just rather like the sort of effect that gives with that sort of speckled effect. So now we can pop that to one side. Come back to this. So I'm just going to stamp this in some memento, because I'm then going to use. Normally you'd use stays on, but because I'm not using a lot of water as such, so I'm just going to ink my branch up and pop it with some memento there. And then my robin is quite a large stamp, so I'm just going to come in over the top with my ink pad to my stamp, and then I'm just going to kind of, roughly speaking, kind of get his claws on that branch, hopefully. There we go. Now I'm using watercolour pencils, which I don't use as often as I should really, and they're probably from both of the sets. I kind of keep them together, and I've got some from each. And you'll want a blender pen. So what I'm using mainly here, so I've got this is my pumpkin pie pencil. So obviously Robin Redbreasts do have a kind of orangey sort of tone. Often, so they're not sort of a true red, but I'm just coming in with both the real red pencil and my pumpkin pie. I'm using the this basic grey. Yes, this is basic grey. So the basic grey, when you look at a robin, most of his body is kind of a greyish colour. So I'm just very softly going over, and then I'm just using the kind of sharper end to sort of reinforce those little sort of feathery shapes, and just come in here where it would naturally be a little bit more shadowed. And they kind of seem to have a little bit of grey around their face. And then I'm going to use an early espresso for the rest of this. So I'm just coming over, again sort of adding a bit of sort of darker shading where those lines are, just to make it a little bit more, and then blending a little bit of brown in there. So at the moment it kind of looks a little bit sort of sketchy. Just going to add a little of the grey onto this branch, and now just make sure that it hasn't got any other colour. I'm just going to use a blender pen, and you'll see that just blends all of those little pencil marks out to give you a lovely soft finish. I'll use the other end. I'm going to do the same with the grey. Like so, and you see it just sort of smooths it really. And I just find this sort of quicker than using my stamping blends. at times as well. So there we have our lovely little robin. And so again, that can go to one side. So now we're ready to do the really easy scoring. Now this is, this card is very straightforward. Oh, I have done the dimensions in inches as well. So just click on the description bar below this. So with this card, 27 by 14.5, your first score line is at 4.5, then 9. Extend the bar out because we're going up to 18. And then 22.5. So if you can score a card base, you can make this fun fold. Very straightforward. And all we need to do is reinforce those score lines with my bone folder. And then once we've reinforced them, just fold that first one back on itself. And the same the other side. So you've got like a fold back gatefold card here. And that is slightly narrower than a standard card base, which means that what we can do now is put some adhesive on this side, then we're going to add it to our card base. So I would recommend a wet glue for this bit. Simply make sure it's the right way up, because this is going onto this left hand side. So you're just going to pop this in the centre. And then obviously with the wet glue, that enables you to make sure that that's nicely aligned. So that then will open up like so. Which means we can add our centre panel in there. And that just has a very nice narrow border around it. Now I'm going to add my embossed panel to the side. And when I did the card, I did sort of think, I thought, oh, actually you could leave it as it was with that embossed texture. But I wanted to add a bit more colour to it. So I have cut a host of leaves. So using those 2 leaf dies, we've now got some lovely leaves that we can use to add to our panel. So I found that sort of a couple of leaves, so having a couple of the larger ones, and then just having a play around with some of the other colours. So I kind of wanted one of each colour for the top, and then but I wanted to introduce another colour or just stick with those autumnal tones. Again, those lovely aspen leaves for the dies. So with these, I have used a bit of dimension on them. So with all of my leaves, I like to shape them a little bit first. You know, if I was depending on if I was posting it, I would probably not use quite as much dimension. But you know, by the time you're paying for a thicker one, you know, we might as well go for it. Okay. So dimensionals, you know, these are fabulous. Just pop these dimensional on the back. And you can add a couple of leaves there. And I've got a larger leaf here. I might just stick with those smaller ones. And on the right here, what I actually did was the larger one I put on the bottom with dimensionals, and I actually worked kind of from the bottom up, because what I then did was I tucked one in there, so just behind. So I'm going to glue that one flat, just add that in behind, and it doesn't matter if they overhang slightly because your card is going to concertina together. You can then go for one of our other shades, and I popped that one in, just kind of reminding me of just leaves sort of tumbling down. just like that extra lift that gave. And then, yeah, I think I'll just put another one of these larger ones, only because I've got a larger one rather than a small one in another colour. That's a bit big. But you could stamp your sentiment onto there if you wanted to, in fact, which I haven't done. I haven't done this with a sentiment. It's probably because I'll probably use a happy birthday or something when it comes to. But there we have our lovely perch in a tree pair of, I don't know what you call it, kind of fold back panel cards. Yeah, I think I do prefer my sunset on this one, although I love polished pink, and I do love the hint of pink, but that Cajun craze really looks lovely. So, which one do you think? Which one do you fancy? No preference? You're going to make one? Let me know, and get those watercolour pencils out as well. So thank you for watching. Do come back and see me again soon. Please hit the like and subscribe button if you can. Yeah, if you don't make a purchase, I'd love it if you could choose me as your demonstrator. If you just go to Stampin' Up, and then when you get to the checkout, search for demonstrator, and you can select me by searching for me. So thank you for watching. Bye for now.